On today's episode, we're going to break down Warren Sharp's 2024 season preview for the Broncos. Every single year, Warren Sharp puts out this monster preview. It's 559 pages long. It is jam-packed with a lot of really insightful information. So if you like today's video, I recommend you go get his preview. I'm sure you'll like that as well. And if you don't know who Warren Sharp is, he's one of the most analytically driven league media members. Well, he's not really media, I guess, but he's a really bright mind, we'll put it, in the NFL sphere. And he uses a lot of facts and analytics to drive his opinions and make all of his claims based off of a lot of research. So there's a lot of information in this preview. I took some of the highlights, in which there were many, and I want to share them with you guys here. So we're going to run through the win projection for the Broncos this year and the history behind his win projection. I guess we'll call it theory-ish, but again, theory is a very loose term. The end of the Russell Wilson era, what kind of led to the demise between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, and why it was not a fit, not only off the field, but just kind of on the field as well. Bo Nix's impact for the team in 2024. He's got positional rankings for the team. And then we're going to look at the running back room. But let's start with the win projection in history. Because, sure, Vegas puts out lines every single year. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're way off. It's Vegas. But I do think that Warren Sharp does have a bit of an advantage when he looks at win total projections. Because he factors in the upcoming schedule for that team. So he puts out this graphic, and it's got the NFL strength of schedule, with the easiest one coming to the Atlanta Falcons, far away from the number 2 spot, the Chargers, and the most toughest schedule going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, a lot of people put together their strength of schedule based on last year's win percentage. I don't like that. Teams change a lot from year to year. They draft quarterbacks. They move on from quarterbacks. Last year's record is not a very good indicator. So what Warren Sharp does is he puts together a strength of schedule based on the team's opponent's win total from Las Vegas. So for the Broncos, you can see they slot in at the 25 spot, which is not ideal, for just being honest. And that's primarily because they got to play twice against the Kansas City Chiefs. Vegas thinks the Chargers will be better this year. And just the rest of the schedule having some tough opponents in the eyes of Vegas. Now, to make matters a little bit worse, Warren Sharp also included this in his preview. I want to share it with you guys. Of the 7 teams forecast to finish at or below 500 and predicted to have harder than average schedules, all 7 had losing records and 6 went under their win total. Vikings, Broncos, Giants, Patriots, Commanders, and Cardinals. So in English, basically what Warren Sharp is looking at here is teams that are not supposed to do well in the eyes of Vegas, a win total below 500, and they are in the red of that schedule, one of the toughest schedules in the league. This year, there are 7 teams in that club. The Patriots, the Vikings, the Titans, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Giants, and the Cardinals. In short, teams that are supposed to be bad and have a tough schedule. Last year, all 7 of those teams that fit that criteria, they went under in their win total projection, which for the Broncos this year is at 5.5. So if history repeats itself like it did last year, it's not going to be a good season for Denver. But that is kind of the beauty of sports, is as much numbers you want to look at, as much analytics you want to use to back up your claims and your takes, sports are sports. Expect the unexpected. So I'll put the win total, which Vegas has at 5.5 for you guys, over or under 5.5 wins for the Broncos in 2024. Before today, I was in the camp of over without a doubt. After seeing what happened to 7 teams last year, that Denver now finds themselves in that same club of, with a sub-500 win total projection from Vegas and a schedule that's one of the toughest in the NFL, the bottom half, not looking good, just to be honest. All right, second part of the preview I want to share with you guys, the end of the Russell Wilson era. There were a lot of factors that went into Russell Wilson's demise in Denver. But Warren Sharp always comes from that analytics angle. And he had some really good, pieces of information to share. So recapping 2023, just a couple of the highlights from his preview I want you guys to see. Russell Wilson last year, 3.1 seconds to throw was his average time. That was the longest in the NFL. That shouldn't be too surprising based on what we saw from Russ in Seattle. He liked to extend plays, and that usually led to a big touchdown down the field to Doug Baldwin or Tyler Lockett. And we got some of those this past year, like Marvin Mims in the Commanders game, plenty of Cortland Sutton touchdowns, but he held on to the ball for a very long time, the longest of all qualifying quarterbacks at 3.1 seconds. That's not how Sean Payton likes to run his offense. He wants to keep it on schedule. Snap, read, throw. Not snap, I'm going to look around, extend the play, and we'll try to find something along the way. That is the opposite of a Sean Payton offense. Also, third highest rate of passes thrown behind the line of scrimmage, but also seventh highest rate of passes thrown 20-plus yards down the field. I think that Warren Sharp had a great use of words to describe this. It's like an NBA offense. Either three-pointers or layups. No mid-range, which in the NBA, that's a good thing. In the NFL, no. You should take the mid-range. You should go for the intermediate passes. You should throw for the first down marker and not just behind the line of scrimmage or all the way down the field. It was an unpredictable, chaotic, and underwhelming all at the same time type of offense. It was chaotic in the sense that Russell Wilson held the ball for a long time. We never knew what to expect. It was unpredictable in that regard, along with the long throws down the field at the seventh highest rate in the NFL. And it was underwhelming because he was third in passes behind the line of scrimmage. Like, it was a sink or swim offense. It was a boom or bust offense. There was just nothing on schedule. And for Sean Payton, that is an absolute living nightmare. And luckily for him, he has Bo Nix now, who should fit that mold a lot better than Russell Wilson did. More from the preview I want to show you guys. Now, I'm not really sure how Warren Sharp got these numbers, if I'm being transparent, but he put it in there for 2023. Russell Wilson had 26% of his passes between 5 to 15 yards. Of 509 quarterbacks since 2005, that ranked 509th. 27% of his passes last year were behind the line of scrimmage. Of 509 quarterbacks since 2005, that ranked 509th. And then 62% of his passes within 5 yards of line of scrimmage only ranked 508. Now, you add up those three percentages, they do not equal 100%. And so I reread this section like 5 times trying to understand what I'm missing. And maybe he's combining passes within 5 yards of line of scrimmage with passes behind the line of scrimmage because the math ain't really math in here. But regardless, it ain't good company to be in for Russell Wilson. So in short, there were just no intermediate throws. Like I said, it was either at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, or way downfield. But there was nothing over the middle of the field that was proving to be successful. And there are some fingers that can be pointed to that, whether that was Russell Wilson's decision-making, whether that was the play calling brought in by Sean Payton. Like, that's up for debate. But I think there's a couple of factors that contributed to that, and that is probably Sean Payton did not really trust Russell Wilson to make those throws over the middle of the field. So he did not ring in those play calls very often. Now, before we look at the rest of the season preview, if you are looking for a Broncos YouTube channel that's going to entertain you all offseason and soon in season long, hit the subscribe button down below. Help us continue to grow, be one of the fastest growing Broncos YouTube communities out there. Third part of the preview I want to share, Bo Nix's impact this year. Warren went into Bo Nix's arrival in Denver and what this could look like for the Broncos in 2024. So, some more analytics to share. In college, Bo Nix scrambled 6% of the time when pressured. That might sound like a lot of football mumbo-jumbo, but in English, Bo Nix stayed on schedule. He did not deviate from the plan. If pressure arose, if the pocket started to collapse, unlike Russell Wilson, he did not rush out of the pocket, hold on to the football, and try to extend the play, which sometimes leads to a good outcome. A lot of time it leads to a sack or an interception. Bo Nix, only 6% of the time scrambling when pressure amounted. So that's something that that Sean Payton is going to love. Now, something that needs to change is 28% of Nix's third and long pass attempts reached the sticks. That was third lowest in FBS last year. In short, Bo Nix just wasn't pushing the ball down the field enough when he needed to on third and long, right? He was taking the check down option, And that's not going to cut it in the NFL. You have to be some level of a risk taker. Like, as crazy as backwards it might sound, you kind of want your quarterback every so often to throw an interception because it shows that he's being aggressive with the football. These are situations where you want to see that out of your quarterback, right? I think you'd rather have your quarterback throw an interception way down the field on 3rd and 12 than check it down and get 2 yards and punt on 4th and 10. Sure, the pick sucks, but if that throw turns into a completion or a touchdown 2 times out of 5, I think you'll take that one pick every so often. So, Nick should come in and help stabilize the offense, improve consistency, but there's no doubt that the explosive plays is a question mark, and it's something that we need to see. We saw some of it in college at Oregon, but then again, he played a long time in college. Like, when you get 5 cracks at college football, I kind of hope in your 5th crack you can pick on some of the 18, 19, 20-year-old DBs on the field as a 5-year starter in the FBS ranks. So, as impressive, and don't get me wrong, it is extremely impressive what Bo Nix did in his last year at Eugene, in his final 2 years in Eugene. But now we need to see that carry over to the NFL in explosiveness and not picking on some youngins because you played 5 years of college football. Now, if you are a believer in Bo Nix, prove it to me by liking today's video. Let's see this video get over 300 likes, get some good mojo out in the Broncos YouTube world going into training camp. 4th part of the story I want to share now, positional rankings. So Warren Sharp goes through all 32 teams, and he ranks all of their units. And for the Broncos, it was not pretty, just to keep it short and sweet here. So we can look at the positional rankings for the team, which overall was 28th. Not good. ESPN ranked him 31st. So that's kind of the floor and ceiling we've seen so far. Quarterback room, 29th. I can't really argue that. Quarterback room is a rookie, Jarrett Stidham, and a failed first-round pick in Zach Wilson. That's not one that I'm going to get up in arms over. Offensive line is 11th. Running back, 27th. Wide receiver, 26th. Front 7, 31st. Secondary, 28th. And head coach, 18th. So let's break this down bit by bit. We talked about the quarterbacks. Offensive line coming in at 11. I don't think that's all that far off of a ranking. I mean, if you want to be a big-time homer, maybe you can round it up to like 10 or 9, but are we really going to split hairs over 10th place or 11th place? This seems appropriate to me. Running back being 27th, it's hard to argue. With the way Javon Williams played last year, if he's your starter going into this year and your incumbent rushed an average of 3.6 yards a carry a season ago, you're not going to get a much better ranking than that. Wide receiver being 26th, you've got Courtland Sutton coming off a 10-touchdown campaign, but you haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Courtland Sutton 5 years ago? Like, that's not a good stretch. I don't agree whatsoever with the front 7 being 31st. Listen, the run defense was bad last year. I have been the czar of improve the Broncos' run defense this offseason. But I do think they are selling the Broncos' pass rush a little bit short. You had Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito both put up 8+ sack seasons. Baron Browning missed a third of the season, and he had 5 sacks. Zach Allen was a solid contributor down the stretch. By no means is this some top 10 unit, but it's not the second worst unit in football. Yes, the run unit is bad, but I do think there is enough love in that pass rush department, especially with the addition of John Franklin Myers, to be better than 31st. Like, this is not one I'll split hairs over. I think this is a bad rating right here. It should be closer to 23, 22. We're talking 10 extra spots up. Secondary being 28th, I also wholeheartedly disagree with. Patrick Surtain is simply good enough to be better than 28th. You put Patrick Surtain on any team's DB room, and he is going to be the best DB on that team. So he's going to be better than 28. Like, that's what I kind of read this as. I know there's other players that contribute to the cornerbacks department and the safeties, but still, we're talking about a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion, and he's just scratching the surface right now. I'd put the secondary for the Broncos at 23rd. And head coach being 18th, this is one that people are going to scooch up in their seats over. Let's read what Warren Sharp wrote first. Sean Payton dropped 9 spots in our rankings. He appears to be falling behind, as most older coaches do. You know he's going to read that and hate that. Only 11.8% of the Broncos' first or second down passes were thrown past the first down marker, the league's 3rd lowest rate. That type of conservative approach gets you nowhere. in this era. I'm going to push back on Sean Payton being the 18th best coach in football. Denver went 8-9 last year with arguably the worst defense in NFL history for the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season, and Russell Wilson being an absolute sink or swim type of quarterback and no consistency, and he's the 18th best head coach. I don't buy that. I don't think you can find 17 other head coaches that would coach the 2023 Broncos to an 8-9 record. No, not buying that one bit at all. All right, before we look at the last part of today's show, if you want to get this Broncos t-shirt and hat combo, get it today before the sale runs out. Go to chatsports.com/DEN combo. I put that link for everyone in the comments and description of today's video. So check it out today. Get this Broncos hat and t-shirt 40% off. Finally, is it Jaleel McLaughlin time? The preview went in depth on the Broncos running back situation, and it was not kind to Javon Williams, who unfortunately had a tough 2023 season, bouncing back from a major 2022 knee injury, but he had a career low average 3.6. I mean, we're talking, 6/7 tenths of a yard down from where he was the season before. 774 yards, 3 touchdowns on 217 carries. Compare that to Jaleel McLaughlin, who averaged 5.4 yards a carry. He only got 76 carries, 410 yards, 160 receiving yards, and 3 total touchdowns. Jaleel McLaughlin, 5.4 yards a carry. Sure, not the biggest sample size, just 76 carries. One of the best in the NFL. Javon Williams, 3.6 yards a carry. I think it is the actual worst average for any running back with over 200 carries. Now, unfortunately, it got worse for Javonte in this preview. Last year, he had a missed tackle rate of 15.7%. Before his injury in week 4 of 2022, it was 31.6%. Just cut in half. So that's a number that I think will improve as he gets further away from that knee injury. He'll be 2 years removed from almost the day, October, whatever it was, 2022, from the knee injury he suffered in Las Vegas. And I think we'll start to see a more familiar version of Pookie that we saw in year 1, splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. But as big of a proponent and fan I am of Javon Williams going into this year, I'd be lying if I said he wasn't on some level of thin ice. I don't think Javon Williams is at a spot where if he has a bad practice or two, he's getting benched. But I think if Javon Williams gets off to a slow start, 2-3 weeks into the season, we may not even get to October, and we'll see Jaleel McLaughlin start to get more carries than him. That's how short of a leash I think we'll see once the season gets underway. So pick a running back for me. Who do you think will have a better year, Javon Williams or Jaleel McLaughlin? Get in the comment section below and let me know. I'm not quitting on Javon Williams. Contract year, 2 years removed from his knee injury, and we saw how special and how big of a bowling ball he was in his rookie year while still having some really good speed. I'm thinking Javon Williams is going to surprise some people this season. All right, before we get on out of here, some summer hot takes. As always, it is 93 degrees today, so toasty day up at the Mile High City. Fajita's plate hot take for you all. I'm going to take the over on the Broncos' 5.5 wins. Don't get me wrong. Everything Warren Sharp said was backed by facts, right? It wasn't really opinion generated, except for his positional unit rankings. Everything he said was just a stat or a fact, and I'm sorry if facts hurt your feelings, but they are facts. But despite all that, I don't give a shit. I'll take the over. Why not have some fun this year? Give me the over 5.5 wins.